Hey, 3MJers, welcome to another episode of Coach Brad's YouTube Q&A, where I take your guys' questions. First video, training in total silence. This is something I put up a while ago. I like to do this about 2 or 3 times a month. I don't even really have a specific reason for training in silence, except for I can get in touch with my soul, that part of me that is not this body, right? So there's a good question here. Nah, not going to happen. Have you tried training in a packed commercial gym, which gives me major anxiety? So yes, I have. And in fact, I bought my wife a very expensive pair of noise canceling, I think they're Beats headphones. And I mean to tell you, just don't play any music at all. Just don't play anything. Just put those headphones over your ears. I couldn't hardly hear anything. I could hear faint stuff way out in the background, like a fan that's in the next room. But otherwise, I couldn't hear a thing. It was just like training in silence. And I could think about the stuff that I was wanting to think about, and I could focus on what it was I was trying to focus on. And yeah, just put on a pair of noise canceling earphones like those and you'll be fine. Got another good question here. Is fatigue blocking your progression? How long should progression last? If I can progress for 3 to 4 weeks and then run into stalls, joint pain, or other recovery issues, likely due to accumulated fatigue, does that mean I'm doing too much? And we have a response here. Sounds like every 3rd, 4th week, you should do a deload. I agree with that person, the dude 003. If you're progressing through your block, then you're probably just in need of a microcycle, a week, short period of time when your volume comes down. And that way your fatigue can be mitigated. If your fatigue is accumulated to where it's this large gap, usually over time, the fatigue gets mitigated, and then your performance will be able to drift back up to your potential where you know that you're at. However, I kind of sometimes wonder if you just back that volume off a little bit, if you could actually get longer blocks of training to where you just kind of keep being able to progress. It might be worthwhile just running the deload first and then see if you start picking back up and getting progression that is above and beyond the previous block, or just back it down just a little bit and then see if you can just kind of keep progressing while keeping joint pain at bay and other recovery issues. But that's a great question. Another good question here, when to adjust volume or intensity. Killer K009 says, wait, am I understanding this correctly? So if you reach the end of a block and one of your benchmark exercises is weaker, and that's an indicator that you should do less volume or train farther from failure. My answer to that would be, remember that your body is participating in your program in totality. If your benchmark exercise is declining, remember that some of your other exercises that you are doing could either contribute or block your ability to progress in that benchmark exercise. So look at those markers as well. Any of the muscle groups that are used in your benchmark exercise, are those muscle groups declining in their individual either bodybuilding or assistance work? Because if they're declining, then you know you have the root cause of why your benchmark exercise is declining. And in all likelihood, yes, you are doing too much volume, which is blocking your ability to recover, therefore blocking your ability to progress. Now, the second part of your question here, couldn't it be that you needed more to progress instead? And you hit the nail on the head, Killer K009, when you said, especially if you're already doing lower volume, like less than 8 fractional sets a week, 0 to 3 RIR. If you are doing fairly low volume, and to me, 8 sets, that's not too terrible low. 8 or less, I would say yes, go ahead and increase the volume and see if your benchmark exercise starts to pick up and start progressing. However, don't make any adjustments until you look at your program in totality and more importantly, the key muscle groups that are contributing to that benchmark exercise. See what those are doing as well. If everything's really, really low, then yes, I would say you could probably add more volume and see if those kind of pick up. However, if you're way up in the upper end and some of those muscle groups are getting hit 20 times a week or more, try bringing it down and see what happens. All right, next question is from one of my videos that's a little bit more touchy-feely. How do you know that you're going to be good at bodybuilding? How do you know that you're going to place well, right? And I have a good question here. You'll find out pretty quick if you're good at it. Like Nicholas here, 19823, I kind of disagree with you because you could have, like me, a genetic ability to excel in one of the 3 metrics of bodybuilding judging. I exceeded in conditioning. I was able to get leaner than anybody on the bodybuilding stage that I competed with. And so therefore I placed very well. And so therefore I leaned on that in order to get my pro status in bodybuilding. However, once I was at the pro ranks, I kind of found out I can't lean on my conditioning anymore because everybody is that conditioned. Everybody is that lean. And I kind of found out that, you know what? I'm not a very good bodybuilder. My hips are too wide. I don't have very good V-taper. I don't really have a whole lot of muscle mass. I've got decent muscle. I mean, above average at best, but I don't have a whole lot of muscle. And so I found out that I was not very good in bodybuilding. However, I didn't know that at the time. I just leaned on my one superpower, I guess you might say, and did quite well at it. Others, they might not be able to get really overly lean, or they may not have the best symmetry. And so they lean on their size, the incredible muscle that they have, and they might place well, 2 or 3 shows, maybe even more if they're kind of attacking shows that are not very competitive, right? It takes time in a subjective sport to find out if you're not good at it. This is from episode 40, mic'd up on my squat, bench, and deadlift day. Got a question here from Latman. Have you always done double overhand deadlift grip? I've always been conventional grip over under, and I tried the double overhand once with the thumb tucked in, and it felt horrible. So it does take time. And what you're talking about there with the thumb tucked in, that's the hook grip, okay? And that was basically originated from Olympic lifters. They just basically use their thumb like a strap in a way. And the bar just kind of fits in that little hole right there. Almost everybody that I have encountered has eventually figured out how to use hook grip. And you're right, it does not feel good. But what I can tell you is that it helps if you kind of save hook grip for your singles, your really heavy singles and your really heavy doubles. And it helps to tape your thumb. The last piece of advice I would say is you got to squeeze the heck out of your thumb. You got to squeeze it like as hard as you could possibly squeeze it because it actually alleviates some of the pain. I think it just kind of gets numb in a way. My good friend Eric Helms, as you all know, he has extraordinarily small thumbs. His thumb, if I tuck that in, that's kind of what his thumb looks like on his hand. He's got like regular sized fingers and then a thumb that kind of looks somewhat like that. Even he was able to master hook grip, not only for Olympic lifting, but then also for powerlifting. I feel like if Eric could do that with thumbs that, kind of look like that, I think almost anybody can do it. The main reason that a lot of us use hook grip is because the underhand grip is prone to tearing bicep muscles. However, I've also noticed that with some folks, the way that they're built, especially if they're sumo pullers, that underhand grip brings the arm kind of inward more. And then what ends up happening is their arm actually hits their thigh on the way up, and the bar ends up going away from their body. Like you'll actually see the bar twist. If you were kind of looking from the top, the bar kind of twists away from your body on the side that you've got the underhand grip, and it limits the amount of weight that you can lift. So for that reason, when you get that hand, both of them overhand, and you use hook grip, now that arm is no longer in the way. It's not rubbing against your thigh and getting that bar away from your body and away from your kind of your center, and allows you to lift more weight and be a more efficient lifter. Alrighty, a couple of questions on the Mic'd Up Vlog, episode 41, the new chest day. Absolutely use this as background content when I'm training at home. Thank you, my friend. That's what I was hoping. If even 2 or 3 people were like, this kind of helps me to train at home and get a little bit of motivation. That is music to my ears, and that was kind of what I was hoping for. But this gentleman here, Josh, loving outdoors, 455. Brad, I've been lifting for nearly 14 years. I'm averaging 5'8". Gives me some context there. Never had 16-inch arms. Even at 15% body fat, the most I could get to is 15.5. I don't like blaming genetics, but it might be the limitation why I might never have 16-inch arms at 10% body fat. I mean, I hate to burst your bubble, but muscle hypertrophy is not just size. We have to remember that muscle hypertrophy is also the density of the muscle inside. I remember vividly when my arms were 16 inches, or at least they were darn close to 16 inches. They might have been 15 and 7/8. And I was just hammering away on the volume, trying to get him to grow, get him to grow, get him to grow. First of all, I was young and I was able to recover. My elbows weren't too terrible bad back then. But what I discovered is yes, they did not grow at all. But what they did develop is they developed a new split, which I don't know, maybe I can show it here. There's a little split right there that you can kind of see that I had never had before. You can just barely see it in this light right there. While my arms weren't getting any bigger, that split showed up out of nowhere, and I have had it ever since. So when you're talking about muscle growth, muscle hypertrophy, it's not just size. You basically end up getting, it's not just size that ends up happening. You actually will change the density and kind of somewhat, no, I shouldn't say the shape, but basically you kind of get the idea. You start developing new splits, new striations as you're adding more muscle inside, I guess you might say, of that muscle. Same person, it says, Brad, do you think that someone is close to their genetic muscular potential and strength rep increases can hit a barrier? And at what point does maintaining become the default state? I feel like it's more age related than anything else in terms of intermediate and advanced lifters, right? Because I've experienced it here over the last 2 or 3 years. Once I got like over my 50s, I could just kind of feel my strength kind of decline a little bit. Luckily, I've got kind of good, muscle insertions for good peaked biceps, but gone are the days of 16. I don't even think they're even 15 inches anymore. I think they're probably like 14 and 7/8. I feel like age is kind of more so the barrier than anything. And what basically just kind of happens, at least what keeps me motivated, is I've got my lifts and kind of what I had in my 30s and then what I had in my 40s, which as far as my strength goes was kind of my peak. But those days are gone. And now I've got kind of my lifts and my PRs for being 50. It's just a matter of changing your perspective. Last video, how to actually lose fat without losing muscle. I trust this guy. He's a Cowboys fan, so he's an expert in losing. That was hilarious. It was kind of like, ouch, but then, oh my gosh, that is funny. I had to reply to that because that was truly funny. Even my son, who is like, he's more of a Cowboys fan the way that I was when I was his age, when I was younger. I'd like cry when the Cowboys lost, but he even thought that was funny. Good question here, though. How long does it take before the calories need adjusting? I'm almost 4 months in and lost 19 pounds so far, but the loss has slowed considerably over the last 2 to 3 weeks. So I talk about this in the video. There's a couple of things that could be happening there. So when you started with your deficit, here is where you were, here is where your calories were, or hopefully are, hopefully they're staying there. But your body has slowly drifted down. Your body weight, I should say, has slowly drifted down to where this level of calories that you were at is getting closer and closer and closer to maintenance, okay? And then at that point, what needs to happen is you need to just kind of play chicken and find out if your body will continue to drop and if you truly plateaued. That takes a while. If you don't have any deadlines that are looming, like a bodybuilding competition in like 12 or 14 weeks, just ride there. Play chicken, because sometimes as you get closer and closer and closer, you're still losing body fat, but it's just the body weight is not going down due to substrates and fluids and things like that. And so you just kind of play chicken for about 4 weeks, because what you'll kind of find is that you're burning fat the whole time. And then all of a sudden, once your body eliminates all those fluids and those substrates, boom, you get this nice drop that's even closer to where maintenance is there. It takes a while, for kind of things to develop when it comes to losing grams and milligrams of fat, and that being masked by holding on to grams of fluids. Not sure I can cut much deeper. I'm already at 1,900 to 2,000 calories intake per day. Man, I wish I could diet on that. I'm dieting on like 1,600 calories and 10,000 steps and regular workouts 5 days a week. Feeling weak and tired at this point and dreaming of food. So I would agree with these folks here who chimed in and thought that refeeds were needed. And even more so than a refeed, like this person says here, you probably just need a good old-fashioned diet break. Increase your calories to what you think is maintenance and then just keep them there for probably a good week, maybe even a 10 or 12 days. And then what you might find is that when you give your body a little bit of a break, you might find that your body weight starts going down on that level of calories. What you probably found out is that you were in a deeper deficit than you thought. Your body was just kind of fighting back. And by increasing the calories, you're still in a deficit, but you didn't know it. And your body has gotten a little bit of a break. And so it starts shedding that body weight, either in the form of body fat or fluids and substrates, etc., and you start losing weight again. But that's where our expertise as practitioners kind of comes into play, is to keep the body losing body fat and breaking through plateaus in that way. You could even say, okay, well, you know what? It doesn't look like you're doing any cardio. So keep your 10,000 steps and just incorporate a little bit of cardio. If you're doing no cardio and getting 10,000 steps, if you do any cardio, you have just vastly increased the amount of expenditure that you're going to have through doing cardio. And for any information that you guys might want on that, check out the 3DMJ Vault and look at our course on cardio for fat loss. And it will go over all of the rules, the quick and handy rules that we use to use cardio for busting fat loss plateaus. All right, gang, I hope that you enjoyed that. And if you have any other questions, pop them into the videos and I will answer your question next time. Take care now.